Welcome into college football addiction. Penn State moves on to the next round of the college football playoff in the most dominating playoff game we've seen since, well, really just a couple of years ago. This happens pretty often, and there are a ton of hot takes flying on both sides of why this team deserved to be in, this team deserved to be out, this team shouldn't have gotten in, this team shouldn't be sitting at home, this coach has got Twitter fingers, this, that, and the other. And all of that aside, I'll talk about that at a later date. I do want to actually talk about the football game, because what does end up happening is our college football discourse doesn't really focus very much on the games themselves, the actual players, the actual coaches, the actual effort, the fans in the stands that watch this home playoff game. We just like to get off hot takes about who should have been in or who shouldn't have been in. And I promise you, I will do that. But I will not be like everyone else that is doing recaps right now and just talk about those hot takes. I'll talk about that later, so make sure you're subscribed. But let's talk about the actual game. I thought in the first half, now this might, I just said I wouldn't do hot takes, but maybe you'll think this is. I thought that outside of the Jennings mistakes, SMU played a pretty good first half, especially defensively. I thought they had a good start. Obviously, the 3 and out. Their second defensive series I thought was really good. Penn State did get a first down, but then they stopped them again. I thought they played pretty well to start. SMU obviously had to go, or didn't have to, but went for it on fourth down deep in Penn State territory, and nearly had the touchdown if it hadn't been dropped/dislodged. I think Jennings has to just go get that first down there. He's running on the 4th and 1. He clearly would have been able to get the first down had he cut up field. I think you just got to take what's there instead of trying to make the heroic play. But at the same time, I don't blame a kid for trying to go out and get the touchdown that he thought he had. On 3rd and 1, I'd like that more. On 4th and 1, go get the first down. They were moving the ball well. If they take a 7-0 lead in that game, or even a 3-0 lead, how does it play out differently? This game was essentially over after the second pick six. Once they went up 14-0, obviously SMU never scored that many points. But if you make it 7-0 early, or even 3-0, does it settle you down a little bit? Your defense is playing well. And to me, when they miss that, and then you had the back-to-back pick sixes, you just really took yourself out of the game. That's 21 points there, 17 if you're only getting a field goal there after converting that 4th and 1. He has to just take that first down. They get another stop on defense after that, but then the first pick six, absolutely horrible decision there. Inexcusable. It's sort of like the beginning of the Clemson game. You just can't do that. 4th and 13. I don't really know why Franklin went for that. Maybe a little bit of a weird spot on the field. Didn't end up mattering in the grand scheme. You get another awful decision on another pick six. That was a really nice play in running it back by Penn State. Penn State's defense was the difference in this game. I'll talk about it in a little bit, but then a 4th down stop by SMU on their own 20, on Penn State's own 20. I'm not sure why Franklin went for that. I thought that was a weird one. They didn't end up picking it up. And then another pick for Jennings in the red zone. It's 28-0 at the half after a couple of good drives by Penn State. That's where I thought their offense did start to click a little bit. But honestly, man, without the 2 pick sixes, and if you convert on your 2 red zone opportunities, even if they're just field goals, the score should have been like 14-6 at the half, probably like 14-10. And who knows what the second half looks like? The second half was never in doubt, never in question, because of you go down 28-0 on the road at half, you're not coming back from that, right? The game was over. It was inconsequential. The point was moot. The second half, who even cares about a recap? I'll talk about it a little bit. But to me, if Jennings just is a little bit sharper and doesn't have the 2 pick sixes, which, again, credit to Penn State, I'm not taking those away, that's what doomed the game. They get stopped inside the red zone twice, once on the 4th down, once on the tipped pick, which that one was a little bit unlucky. And the 2 pick six, I mean, this game, for as bad as it was, 38-10, SMU was really right there in the first half. I know that sounds crazy. I'm not belittling Penn State. They played with their hair on fire, and they were fantastic today. But honestly, they were so close. And every time they needed to make a play, they didn't. And Penn State made it. Good drive to start the second half, and it stalls inside the 10 due to penalties, 28-3. Onside kick gives Penn State a short field. The defense, again, steps up, holds them to a field goal. At this point, it's 31-3, and the score should be 17-3 at worst if you take off the 2 pick sixes. SMU has another nice drive. Stalls again inside the 10. They got down to the 2 thanks to a penalty and a sack. They miss a field goal there. 38-3. It's garbage time touchdown by SMU, gets it back to 10. Jennings, 3 interceptions, absolutely the difference in this game. Penn State stopped the run very well. As much as we love Brashard Smith and think he's really good, he wasn't able to get anything going. That defensive line for Penn State, we spoke with Tom Hannafin before the game. Yeah, one of the best in the country, if not the best in the country. We'll talk about what Penn State has coming up and their path. Obviously, you know it. I'm not breaking any news there. But if they can stop the run next week or the next time they play, they're it's a different game maybe with Ashton Genty, but trenches, can Boise State kind of do what they want? We'll see. I don't think Drew Aller was very good. He was okay at best, but he didn't make any mistakes. He didn't do anything that cost his team the game. In fact, I thought he played about as well as Jennings, minus the 3 picks. Obviously, Jennings much worse there, but I thought they both played okay, and maybe kind of what we expected. I like SMU's defense a lot. I thought SMU's defense played this really well. If you take off all the points from turnovers and the points that were just like, well, this is over at this point, short fields, things like that. I mean, you take 17 points away from the onside kick and the 2 pick sixes. What does Penn State end up with? 21 points. That's really not that impressive to me. Now, Penn State didn't have to score a lot, but early in the game, I did think that SMU's defense was giving them some trouble. Can Penn State kind of overcome that? Can they get that offense rolling a little bit more? That'll be a question for the future. I do think, again, Penn State ran the ball really well. Both Singleton and Allen went over 6 yards a carry, 3 touchdowns between the two of them. Thought that would be tough for SMU to stop. I think they limited Penn State's offense, and they did a good job against the pass. They really couldn't stop the run. They didn't have a big enough of an answer for that. Penn State's defensive line was just way too much. They brought too much pressure. Their trenches, the difference there on both sides of the ball was just very noticeable. Abdul Carter and the boys were absolutely on one. The pressure on Jennings is clearly what forced him into a lot of those mistakes. The first interception looked like a miscommunication where he wanted Smith to keep running his route as opposed to cutting in. Can maybe give him a little bit of a break on that one. The third interception, again, a little bit of an unlucky one with the tipped pass. You taking points off the board, obviously, with that happening inside the 20. And then the second one, just awful, awful decision. The worst of the 3, in my opinion. But just too many mistakes from SMU. When you think about it, again, 3 interceptions and then 2 other drives inside the 10 that were killed by false starts. That's legitimately 35 minus the field goal they kicked. That's a 32-point swing. Right? That's massive. You just cannot have that many mistakes. You can't even have half that many mistakes. Like, if they'd have scored both times inside the red zone and still had the 3 picks, they still lose by quite a lot. And that's where I thought this game, again, don't want this to be a hot take, but that's where I thought this game was actually closer from a down-to-down perspective than the final score indicated. Down-to-down, I thought SMU's defense was holding Penn State down, and I thought SMU's offense was actually driving the ball at times. They just couldn't finish. Penn State could finish, and SMU couldn't. Penn State got down inside the 23 times and came away with 4 times. The 4th down stop, the interception on the tipped pass, and then 2 that were inside the 10. That's 28 potential points that they left on the field. Well, they did kick 1 field goal, so that's 25 potential points that they left on the field. And so from a down-to-down perspective, I actually thought this was fairly close. SMU just could not finish. They could not figure out a way. That Penn State defense absolutely stepped up when they got inside the red zone. SMU shot themselves in the foot with turnovers and penalties. And again, I thought it was a bad decision by Jennings to not go get that 4th and 1 on the run, tried to make the best play instead of just taking what was there. And to me, SMU, maybe they don't win this game anyway, right? What does Penn State continue to do offensively if it is close? Like, I'm not saying SMU was right there to win it, but they didn't even give themselves a chance to try and win this thing. 14 points off the pick sixes, 18 points from drives inside the 10 that failed, because you've got to be at your best on the road. I thought the road crowd here was noticeable. I don't know if it was as noticeable last night because the game was never really in question, but when SMU got inside the red zone, especially inside the 10, forcing false starts multiple times because you're down there in that student section was massive. And the game at that point was 31-3. It was pretty much over. But if they score those 2 drives back to back and make it 31-17, I mean, we're not really thinking that they're going to come back, right? But they did it against Clemson. Could they have scored a couple of touchdowns in the 4th quarter? Could they have gotten it back to a 1-score game? I mean, possibly. I thought their defense was playing really well. non-turnover or short field points, they held Penn State's offense to 21 points. I thought they were somewhat impressive there. If I'd have told you that SMU's defense was going to hold Penn State to 21 points, you just said, they got a shot. They may win it, they may not, but they've got a shot. Overall, yardage wasn't insanely different. I think, SMU was outgained by 50, 60, 70 yards. Like, it wasn't even 100 yards difference in yardage. It was the mistakes. It was the turnovers. It was the failures inside the red zone that ultimately cost SMU not a chance at the game, but a chance at even making the game competitive. And that's probably what drives Rhett Lashley the most crazy, right? They had a shot if they could have finished. But really from the very beginning, from that 4th and 1 that they didn't get, all the way through till the end of the game, they couldn't finish in the red zone outside of the garbage time touchdown. Penn State gets Boise up next. All that said, not at all trying to take away from Penn State. They capitalized. They forced the turnovers. They brought the pressure. They were ultimately the better team in every facet of the game. Field goal kicking, SMU, they were the better team. There's no doubt about it. This is no slight at Penn State. It just, SMU did some of the small things you needed to do to be successful. They just couldn't deliver any blows to Penn State when it really came down to it. You miss on the 4th down. You miss inside the red zone. You have pick sixes. Like that, going on the road to Happy Valley and trying to win like that is impossible. And the mistakes that we saw in the ACC championship came out today, and they were so much worse. And SMU never really got it rolling. Penn State now gets Boise State. That is a game they're probably going to be favored by multiple scores in at a neutral site. You'd think they have a bigger contingent. You think they'd probably have a much bigger crowd than Boise will bring too. I'd be surprised if it was any less than 70-30 in that one. Penn State, without a collapse, has a ticket to the semifinal. No disrespect to Boise, no disrespect to Ashton Genty. There should be no reason that Penn State is not playing the winner of Notre Dame, Georgia in a few weeks. SMU, did they deserve to be in? I still think so. I don't think the results of one game determine whether or not a team should or should not have been in. Now, you can certainly argue for any SEC team you want. You can argue for Miami. You can argue for this team, that team, whoever. Did SMU deserve to be in? I still think so. Your results on the field and in the season have to matter. We can't play this game of, this team lost by a lot. Let's redo what happened. Just because a team would be favored against another team, just because another team may have more talent than another team, doesn't undo the results on the field. I'm going to talk about that later, more fully in another video, especially after what's happened to both SMU and Indiana. The hot takes are flying. The SEC continues to be undefeated in hypothetical games. I'll talk about that a lot. I just don't know that this is the right video for that. I want to let these games play out. Let's see what happens with Texas and Clemson. Let's see what happens with Tennessee and Ohio State, and then we'll share some thoughts. We'll talk about some of that at a later time, probably, again, Monday morning. We'll get through these games, maybe Sunday afternoon. We'll get through these games this weekend, and then we'll talk about it from a more big picture once we have more data points, once we know more of what's happened this weekend. So make sure you're subscribed. Let me know what I got right. Let me know what I got wrong. Let me know what you agree with, don't agree with. Massive hat tip to James Franklin. All the pressure was on them. All the pressure was on him to win a big game, and SMU certainly served it up on a silver platter. I'm not saying that James Franklin was perfect today by any means, but he had his boys ready to play. He had his kids ready to go, and they went out and took it. They were the more physical team. They made less mistakes. They were more dominant. They ran the ball better. The crowd noise was a factor. Again, I love these games on college campuses. I wish it would happen more and more in the playoffs. I wish the next round was on college campuses. I would love a game in Eugene. I would love a game in Idaho. I would love a game in Athens. Tempe. I would love a game out there in Arizona. That's not what's happening. I understand. It's more about money than it is about fans. I get it. But I love the home games. And I'm going to love this one in Austin that's starting right now. And I'm going to love the one tonight in Columbus. Please hit the subscribe button if you've enjoyed this content. If you've hated the content, that's fine too. We're almost to 18,000. Help us get there. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments. We appreciate you, as always, for watching College Football Addiction.